My controlling older boyfriend tried to stop me from going to Vegas for my best friend's bachelorette party. I went anyway and it changed my life. I, Aria, 23F, have been dating my boyfriend Sebastian, 35M, for about 2 years now. We met at my friend Shelley's 21st birthday party. I was in my junior year of college, majoring in marketing and enjoying the typical student life, parties, hanging out with friends, and exploring new experiences. Sebastian stood out in the crowd of college students. He was older, more polished, and exuded a confidence that immediately caught my attention. I remember the night we met vividly. I was wearing a new red dress that Shelley had convinced me to buy, claiming it made me look sophisticated. Sebastian approached me at the bar, offering to buy me a drink. We spent the rest of the night talking, and I was captivated by his stories about his work in finance and his travels around the world. Growing up in a small town, I had always dreamed of a life filled with excitement and adventure. My parents, both high school teachers, had encouraged me to pursue higher education, but they had also instilled in me a sense of caution about the real world. Meeting Sebastian felt like a glimpse into the life I had always imagined for myself. We exchanged numbers that night, and to my surprise, Sebastian called the very next day to ask me out. Our first date was at an upscale restaurant in the city, a far cry from the college bars and fast food joints I was used to. I felt out of place in my nicest dress, which suddenly seemed childish compared to the sleek outfits of the other diners. But Sebastian put me at ease, ordering for both of us and explaining each course as it arrived. As we continued dating, I was swept off my feet by Sebastian's maturity and stability. He had a successful career, his own apartment in the city, and seemed to have everything figured out. In contrast, I was still living in a cramped dorm room, juggling classes and a part-time job at the campus bookstore. Sebastian's life seemed so glamorous compared to mine. Our relationship progressed quickly. Within a few months, I was spending most of my weekends at Sebastian's apartment. He introduced me to fine wines, taught me how to appreciate art, and took me to my first opera. I felt like I was living in a fairy tale, complete with a Prince Charming who was showing me a whole new world. However, as time went on, I started noticing some changes in our relationship dynamic. It began subtly, around the time of my senior year spring break. My friends had been planning a trip to Cancun for months, and I was excited to join them. But when I told Sebastian about it, he frowned and said, "Don't you think you're a bit old for that kind of thing now? Besides, wouldn't you rather spend the week with me in New York?" I was torn. Part of me really wanted to go with my friends, it might be our last chance to all travel together before graduation. But another part of me felt flattered that Sebastian wanted to spend the week with me, showing me around his favorite city. In the end, I chose to go to New York with Sebastian, telling my friends I needed to focus on my future. The trip to New York was amazing in many ways. Sebastian took me to exclusive restaurants and trendy rooftop bars. We visited museums and watched a Broadway show. But I couldn't help feeling a twinge of regret when I saw my friends' photos from Cancun popping up on social media. After that trip, Sebastian's comments about my choices became more frequent. He would make remarks about how I dressed when going out with my college friends, suggesting that certain outfits were too revealing or inappropriate for someone in a serious relationship. At first, I brushed it off, thinking he was just being protective. But then he started questioning why I needed to go out at all, especially to places like bars or clubs. I tried to compromise by inviting him along when my friends and I went out, but he always declined, saying those places were beneath him. Instead, he'd suggest we stay in and watch movies or have dinner at his place. Don't get me wrong, I enjoy quiet nights in, but I also miss the energy and fun of going out with my friends. As graduation approached, I was excited about job prospects and potentially moving to a new city. I had always dreamed of working for a big marketing firm in Chicago or maybe even trying my luck in Los Angeles. But Sebastian had other ideas. He started talking about how great it would be if I found a job locally, so we could move in together. He even went as far as to suggest I apply for an entry-level position at his company, where he could keep an eye on me and help advance my career. The idea of working with Sebastian was tempting. After all, he was successful and respected in his field. Maybe he could help me climb the corporate ladder faster than I could on my own. But a small voice in the back of my mind whispered that this wasn't what I had dreamed of for myself. The situation came to a head last month when my best friend Lily, 24F, invited me to her bachelorette party in Las Vegas. Lily and I have been friends since middle school. We were inseparable throughout high school, and even though we went to different colleges, we always made time to catch up during breaks. She was there for me during my first heartbreak in freshman year, and I was the first person she called when she got engaged. The Vegas trip was going to be a weekend celebration, just us girls, before Lily tied the knot. When I told Sebastian about it, he hit the roof. He said it was completely unacceptable for me to go on a trip like that without him, especially to a place like Vegas. What happens in Vegas stays in Vegas, right? He said sarcastically. Is that what you want for our relationship? We had a huge argument about it. He accused me of wanting to act single and not respecting our relationship. I tried to explain that it was just a fun trip with my friends to celebrate Lily's last days of singlehood, but he wouldn't listen. He even went as far as to say that if I went on the trip, he'd consider it a betrayal and might need to rethink our relationship. I was shocked by his reaction. This wasn't the first time he'd been possessive, but it was definitely the most extreme. I ended up telling Lily I couldn't make it, and I could hear the disappointment in her voice. She asked if everything was okay, and I found myself making excuses for Sebastian's behavior. Now, I'm starting to question everything. I love Sebastian, and we've built a life together over the past 2 years. But I can't help feeling like I'm missing out on experiences and friendships. My college friends have all moved on with their lives, pursuing exciting careers and adventures, while I feel stuck and controlled. I've tried talking to Sebastian about how I feel, but he always turns it around on me, saying I'm being ungrateful or that I don't understand how the real world works. He keeps emphasizing how lucky I am to have such a stable and successful partner at my age, and how I should be focusing on our future together instead of wasting time on frivolous activities. Part of me wonders if he's right. Maybe I am being immature, and I should be grateful for what we have. But another part of me feels suffocated and yearns for the freedom I had before our relationship. I miss my friends, I miss going out and having fun, and I miss feeling like I have control over my own life. I don't know what to do. Am I overreacting? Is this just what adult relationships are like? Or am I ignoring some major red flags? How do I navigate this situation without losing myself or destroying my relationship? Any advice would be greatly appreciated. Update 1. Thank you all for your responses to my original post. Your comments really opened my eyes to some issues I had been ignoring. I wanted to give you an update on what's happened since then. After reading your advice, I decided to have a serious conversation with Sebastian about my feelings. I spent days preparing what I wanted to say, even writing down key points so I wouldn't get flustered. I invited him over to my apartment, thinking a neutral space might help keep things calm. When Sebastian arrived, he seemed to sense something was off. He brought me flowers, yellow tulips, my favorite, which made what I had to say even harder. We sat down on my small couch, the same one where we had spent countless evenings watching movies and planning our future. I took a deep breath and started to explain how I felt suffocated in a relationship and how his controlling behavior was affecting my happiness and my friendships. I told him about how I missed the close bond I used to have with Lily, how we used to talk every day but now barely texted once a week. I mentioned my dream of working in Chicago or LA, which I had almost forgotten about. I even brought up the Cancun spring break trip I had missed, admitting that I regretted not going. To my surprise, Sebastian initially seemed receptive. He apologized for his behavior and promised to work on giving me more space. He even suggested we plan a double date with Lily and her fiancé as a peace offering. For a moment, I felt hopeful that we could work things out. However, things took a turn when I brought up the Vegas trip again. I told Sebastian that I had reconsidered and wanted to go to Lily's bachelorette party after all. His demeanor changed instantly. The warmth in his eyes cooled, and his jaw tightened. He accused me of manipulating him and said I was choosing my friends over our relationship. The argument escalated quickly, with Sebastian saying things like, "You're too naive to understand the dangers of the world and I'm just trying to protect you." He brought up stories from his past, wild parties he had attended in his 20s where things had gotten out of hand. "I've seen what can happen," he insisted. "I don't want you to make the same mistakes I did." In the heat of the moment, I finally stood up for myself. I told Sebastian that I was an adult capable of making my own decisions and that his protection was starting to feel more like control. I said I needed a partner who trusted me and supported my friendships, not someone who tried to isolate me. Sebastian's reaction shocked me. His face turned red, and for a second, I thought he might yell. Instead, he stood up abruptly, knocking over the vase of tulips he had brought. Water and flowers spilled across my coffee table, but he didn't seem to notice. He stormed out of my apartment, slamming the door behind him. Over the next few days, he bombarded me with texts and calls, alternating between angry accusations and tearful apologies. One moment he was telling me I was throwing away the best thing that ever happened to me, the next he was begging for another chance, promising to change. It was emotionally exhausting. After a week of this back and forth, I made a decision. I called Sebastian and told him I needed some time apart to think about our relationship. He didn't take it well, threatening to end things completely if I went through with the Vegas trip. His words hung in the air, "If you go on that trip, don't expect me to be here when you get back." Despite his threats, I decided to go on the trip anyway. I realized that if our relationship couldn't survive me going on a weekend trip with my friends, then maybe it wasn't as strong as I thought. I called Lily and asked if the invitation was still open. She was thrilled, saying she had been hoping I would change my mind. The bachelorette party was last weekend, and it was exactly what I needed. Being around Lily and our other friends reminded me of the person I used to be, carefree, independent, and full of dreams. We had a blast exploring Vegas, from seeing amazing shows to trying our luck at the casinos. One night, as we were getting ready to go out, Lily handed me a dress to borrow, a sparkly gold number that I would have never picked for myself. "Sebastian would hate this," I said without thinking. Lily gave me a long look and said, "But do you like it?" I realized I did. I put on the dress and felt more like myself than I had in months. During the trip, Sebastian continued to send me angry messages. He even went as far as to contact Lily on social media, telling her she was a bad influence on me. Lily was understandably upset, and it led to a heart-to-heart conversation between us. She confessed that she and our other friends had been worried about me for a while, noticing how I'd become more isolated and less like myself since dating Sebastian. This conversation, combined with a space away from Sebastian, gave me a lot to think about. I realized that I'd been making excuses for his behavior for far too long. The controlling attitude I'd attributed to protectiveness was actually a form of emotional manipulation. I'm back home now, and I've made a decision. I'm going to end things with Sebastian. It's not going to be easy. We've built a life together over the past 2 years, and I do care for him. But I've realized that I can't sacrifice my own happiness and personal growth for a relationship, no matter how comfortable or stable it might seem. I haven't told Sebastian yet. I'm a bit nervous about his reaction, given how he's behaved recently. I'm planning to meet him in a public place to have this conversation, and I've asked Lily to be on standby in case I need support. This is a big step for me, and I'm scared but also excited about what the future might hold. Thank you all again for your advice and support. I'll update you again after I've talked to Sebastian. Update 2. I want to thank everyone for their continued support and advice. Your words have given me strength during this difficult time. Here's what's happened since my last update. I met Sebastian at a local coffee shop to break the news. It's a place we used to go to often when we first started dating. I chose it partly for the neutral ground and partly because I thought the familiar setting might make the conversation easier. I was wrong. I arrived early and got a table in the corner, away from the other customers. My hands shook as I waited, and I found myself obsessively straightening the sugar packets on the table. When Sebastian walked in, he smiled at me, and for a moment, I almost lost my nerve. He looked hopeful, probably thinking I had called him there to reconcile. As soon as I told him I wanted to end our relationship, his face fell. He accused me of throwing away 2 years of his life and claimed I was making a huge mistake. "Is this because of that stupid Vegas trip?" he demanded, his voice rising. "I can't believe you're willing to throw everything away for one weekend of partying." When he realized I was serious, his tone changed. He started making promises about how he'd change and give me more freedom. He even suggested couples therapy, which surprised me because he'd always been against the idea before. "We can work through this," he pleaded. "I'll do whatever it takes." For a moment, I felt my resolve wavering. I remembered all the good times we'd had, the romantic dinners, the lazy Sunday mornings, the dreams we'd shared. But then I also remembered how small and controlled I'd felt lately, how I'd been slowly losing myself in this relationship. I stood my ground and told him my decision was final. That's when things got ugly. Sebastian raised his voice, drawing attention from other patrons. He accused me of cheating on him in Vegas and said I'd regret leaving him. "Good luck finding someone else who'll put up with your immaturity," he spat. The manager of the coffee shop had to intervene and ask Sebastian to leave. As he stormed out, he knocked over his chair, causing everyone to stare. I sat there, mortified and shaking, as the manager asked if I was okay and if I needed him to call someone. After he left, I broke down crying. It was a mix of relief and sadness. Even though I knew ending things was the right decision, it still hurt. Lily came to pick me up, and I spent the night at her place, processing everything that had happened. Over the next few days, Sebastian's behavior only confirmed that I'd made the right choice. He alternated between angry messages and pleading voicemails. He even showed up at my workplace once, causing a scene that almost got me in trouble with my boss. I had to block his number and on all social media platforms to get some peace. The hardest part was telling our mutual friends about the breakup. Some were supportive, but others took Sebastian's side, believing his version of events where I was the villain who broke his heart. It was painful to realize that some people I considered friends were so quick to judge me without hearing my side of the story. On a more positive note, I've been reconnecting with old friends and focusing on myself. I've started taking a photography class I'd always been interested in but never had time for when I was with Sebastian. It feels good to be pursuing my own interests again. I've also been apartment hunting. Sebastian and I had been talking about moving in together, and I realized I need a fresh start in a new place. It's scary to think about living alone for the first time, but also exciting. There are moments when I miss Sebastian and our life together. But then I remember how free and happy I felt in Vegas, and I know I've made the right choice. I'm learning to trust myself again and to recognize my own worth outside of a relationship. Thank you all again for your support. I'll post another update once I'm settled in my new place and life. Update 3. It's been a few months since my last update, and I wanted to share how things have progressed. I'm happy to report that I'm doing much better now. The initial pain and confusion after the breakup have subsided, and I'm embracing my newfound independence. I moved into a small but cozy apartment in a vibrant part of town. It's the first place that's truly mine, and decorating it has been a fun project. I filled it with colorful throw pillows, plants, and photos of my friends and family, things that make me smile and reflect who I am. My relationship with Lily and my other friends has grown stronger. They've been incredibly supportive throughout this whole process. We have regular girls' nights, and I'm no longer afraid to go out and have fun. Last weekend, we went to a local music festival, something I would have hesitated to do when I was with Sebastian. It felt liberating to dance and sing along to the music without worrying about someone else's approval. I've thrown myself into my photography class, and I've discovered a real passion for it. My instructor says I have a good eye, and I'm considering pursuing it more seriously. I've even started an Instagram account to showcase my work, something Sebastian always discouraged because he thought it was attention-seeking. It's exciting to have goals and dreams that are entirely my own. Work has been going well too. I finally gathered the courage to apply for that marketing position in Chicago I'd always dreamed about. The interview process was nerve-wracking, but I felt confident and prepared. I should hear back from them in a couple of weeks. The thought of potentially moving to a new city is both scary and thrilling. As for Sebastian, things have finally calmed down. After a few weeks of erratic behavior, including a few more attempts to contact me at work, he seems to have accepted that it's over. I heard through mutual friends that he's started seeing someone new already. While that stung a bit at first, I realized it's for the best. I hope he treats her better than he treated me. The experience with Sebastian taught me a lot about myself and what I want in a relationship. I've started dating again, casually. It's been fun to meet new people without the pressure of jumping into anything serious. I went on a coffee date with a guy from my photography class last week. We talked for hours about our favorite photographers and our dream travel destinations. It was refreshing to have a conversation where I felt heard and respected. Looking back, I can see how much I've grown in just a few short months. I'm proud of myself for recognizing an unhealthy situation and having the courage to leave, despite how difficult it was. I feel like I've reclaimed my life and my identity. There are still moments when I doubt myself or feel lonely. Sometimes I catch myself missing the stability and familiarity of my relationship with Sebastian. But then I remind myself of how far I've come and how much happier I am now. To anyone who might be in a similar situation, wondering if they should stay in a relationship that doesn't feel right, trust your instincts. It's okay to prioritize your own happiness and well-being. It might be scary at first, but you're stronger than you think. Thank you all again for your support and advice throughout this journey. Your words gave me strength when I needed it most. I'm excited about what the future holds, and for the first time in a long time, I feel truly free and happy. Whatever happens with the job in Chicago, or with my photography, or with dating, I know I'll be okay because I've learned to trust myself and surround myself with people who support my growth. I'll keep you updated on any major life changes, but for now, I'm just enjoying the journey and rediscovering who I am outside of a relationship. Here's to new beginnings and the courage to chase our dreams.